Welcome back. Welcome to the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mailer, LCSW, and this is episode 23. We have information at the show in the show notes. If there's anything you're looking for, I would check there first. If you are requesting things like access to research, anything like that, I'll probably post it there first, if not on the social media sites. So check those places. If you do want more things, let me know. I can always add in more things as well. You guys just tell me what you're looking for. We have videos of the episodes on YouTube and Spotify, and I will share clips on social media. So there's little bite-sized pieces for you guys to digest and keep working on and even reflecting on or going back to at times. And the podcast itself is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you would like it somewhere else, just let me know. I'm totally good putting it wherever you'd like it. I want it accessible to you guys, so if you do need it somewhere else, let me know. Those just seem to be the best places for it so far. Make sure to follow, subscribe to us, click the bell to get notified on YouTube to get new content as it comes out. If it is helpful, if you guys are getting things from this, make sure to like it, love it, favorite it, share it with others, and leave us a review. All of this helps us grow and helps us put this out there to as many people as possible, which is the ultimate goal with what we're doing here. We're just trying to help people out and give them tools to just better their life and find the success that they've been looking for. There are a lot of people that could get some help from today's episode. The biggest one would be anybody struggling with feeling not good enough or feeling like they don't belong where they are, kind of that imposter syndrome. And if you have never heard of the term imposter syndrome before, that's okay. It's not super common, but we will go into what it is, what it means, and all these things, and how to know if you're dealing with it. So if that is something you're questioning, tune in. We'll go over all of those things. But first, I want to make it clear that this is not a replacement for therapy or medical treatment. It's purely educational. If there are things you guys need, make sure to go get them because this isn't going to be able to replace that. This is just to spread awareness and help you guys know about some things, maybe point you in a direction to get what you need, which is why we covered different types of therapy and all this kind of stuff so you guys could get the type of therapy you might need for you. But this is just to help you guys out a little bit and to be a supplement, not to take care of these things altogether. So make sure to get what you need and take care of these things. And with that, I do make it a point to give you actionable tools to find success in your life. It's all evidence-based. They're not just random things. And the reason for this is I want to make sure that if you guys are taking time out of your day to try things out, I want to make sure they work, or at least there's a good bet it's going to work. So be sure to try it out. This stuff is all backed by something somewhere. If you want the reasoning behind it or why it's backed by something or what it's backed by, let me know. I'm totally good giving you guys all the information. I just don't want to bog down these episodes with just an overwhelming amount of information backing up literally every single thing we're talking about. That's kind of more in the background, but I am totally good giving it to you guys if you want it. Just let me know. If you have any questions or issues, if you have something you want me to dive into deeper, anything in between, you could reach out to me in a lot of different ways. The first way is through email. My email is tmailer@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You could text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. You can reach out on Instagram or TikTok with the same name for both of those, which is Premier_Performance_Reno. So make sure to jump on board and get into those communities with us. We have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page, both with the same name, Premier Performance LLC for both of those. Again, jump into those communities, get involved. And then our Twitter or X profile, which is at Premier Reno LLC. So make sure to jump on that, follow us, check us out, and make sure to get these little bite-sized pieces as they come out. This is also where we're going to be, kind of doing announcements and shout-outs to different things as we keep growing. So like I said, we're going to cover imposter syndrome today. But first, we're going to get into our brain activity, which is called Imposter to Impact Reframe. First thing we got to do is recognize the imposter beliefs or thoughts you struggle with, because recognition is the first step. If you don't know what's going on, it's really hard to do anything about it. And then you want to flip them on their head and consider your fear of being found out or not knowing enough is because you care and realize the amount of growth you have in front of you. Sometimes we just struggle with the idea that we don't know it all, but we realize that we know more than most people, or maybe we have a hard time even recognizing that. So this is something that happens a lot when people become more experts in their field or more of an authority in their field, is they realize how much they don't know. And this can get in the way. Sometimes we have to flip these things and consider the fact that this fear is because you do care greatly about this and you want to help people out and you don't want to give people wrong information. I've had that happen myself quite a few times. And on top of that, realizing that growth that we have in front of us isn't bad, but we also can't wait until we're completely finished products, because that's never going to happen. We're going to continue to grow through our whole life. And if we don't, that's kind of a problem. That means you plateaued at some point. So we want to flip these things on their head, and we want to keep growing and realize that this really just comes from a place of caring. And it also comes from a place of leaving your comfort zone. That's a good thing to do. And you're putting yourself out there, and you're also putting yourself out there in a very vulnerable way, which can be scary. But you're going to grow, you're going to adapt. And what we have to do is set up our mindset to give us time to adapt to that. So if we can reframe it, if we can look at it differently and focus on the impact of what we're doing and not worried about our own credibility or how many people are listening to us or why someone should listen to us or anything like that, if we just focus on the impact of it, it's going to take that spotlight off of us, which is going to help a little bit. It's going to take that pressure off. And at the same time, it's going to help give us some time to adapt to this position we're in and to providing the information we're looking to provide to people. Focus on the impact you're making, take that spotlight off of you, help yourself get out there, because the world needs to hear the things you have to say. It needs to hear these things, and we got to put ourselves out there. We hold things back and hide ourselves behind dark closets all of the time, and it doesn't help us. It just robs us of really getting what we should get and living the life we need to live. To reach that premier performance, we have to be willing to put ourselves out there in that spotlight and see how it goes, but it doesn't mean we need to be in the spotlight all the time. But at the same time, we can't be hiding all the time either. We got to find that balance. We got to put ourselves out there, and we got to focus on the work sometimes. So give that a shot. Again, always writing these things down works better than just thinking about it. But even if all you can do is think about it, that's still going to be beneficial and helpful. Reflection is always good. We just want to make sure to reflect on these things, reframe these thoughts, and have them work for us, not against us. We don't want to be trying to have this internal battle all the time. So let's help these things work with us by just reframing how we're thinking about it. And at first, it's going to take a lot of repetition, a lot of practice. The more you do it, the easier it'll get. So diving in, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon characterized by persistent self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy, despite evidence of one's accomplishments. Individuals with imposter syndrome may attribute their success to external factors like luck or help from others. They may fear that their achievements will be exposed as fraudulent. They may believe that they are not qualified for their roles or positions. They may compare themselves unfavorably to others. Remember, comparison's the thief of joy. And they may feel like they're faking it or just a fraud in general. Imposter syndrome can be distressing and interfere with daily life in a lot of different ways. And it is more common in women and individuals from marginalized groups because of different issues and struggles that people from these populations struggle with. While not a mental health disorder itself, it can be a contributing factor to anxiety, depression, and burnout. So why does it happen? Imposter syndrome, the feeling of being a fraud despite evidence of success, arises from a complex interplay of personality traits, upbringing, and social factors. It's not a single cause, but rather a combination of learned behaviors, cognitive biases, and environmental influences. Essentially, it's a disconnect between one's internal self-perception and external achievements. Diving a little more into the details, with personality traits specifically, there are a couple that kind of go along with this pretty well, one of such being perfectionism, which is a strong desire for flawlessness that can lead to an intense self-criticism and a feeling of never being good enough. It's kind of chasing something you're never going to catch. While perfectionism and the goal of perfectionism is a good thing, it's not coming from a bad place. It just doesn't help us get to what we want to get to. It doesn't help us reach those goals. So we got to consider that perfectionism might be setting you up for failure sometimes. Neuroticism is another one. Individuals prone to anxiety and worry may become more susceptible to self-doubt. And a couple other big ones is low self-esteem, which is having a poor sense of self-worth that can exacerbate that feeling of inadequacy, and also self-efficacy, which is difficulty believing in one's ability to succeed. This can come from trauma. This can come from other things as well. This can come from just, never really believing yourself or never having people believe in you. There's a lot of different ways this stuff can pop up. There's a lot of questions and research going into personality traits and why they're, kind of in our life and why we choose the ones we choose. And sometimes these aren't even choices. They're just things that we fall into based on things happening around us. And that kind of goes back to upbringing and early experiences. Parental influence can be pretty big. Growing up in a family that emphasized achievement over effort or were overly critical can foster a fear of failure and a tendency to attribute success to external factors, as if it's not you that's succeeding and you're just almost in the survival mode all of the time trying to avoid failure more than trying to reach for success. It's almost like success is like the minimum or the baseline that you have to hit, and that you just have this constant fear of failure that's driving you, which isn't going to really help us. There can also come from early pressure to perform. High expectations in academics, sports, or other areas can lead to a cycle of self-doubt and anxiety about not measuring up. And it's not saying we can't try and reach for, high goals even at young ages. We just have to do it at the right way. If we put too much pressure on things, things can crack sometimes. And if we're too pressured, sometimes we shut down. Sometimes we're too just like stiff in our body, stiff in what we're doing, stiff in our belief systems, and that can break, that can cause issues. We got to be flexible. We have to have some flexibility to it. It can't be just this flawless thought process of it needs to be perfect and I need to just get it done. Attachment styles are also greatly involved in these as well. An anxious attachment style, characterized by a need for constant reassurance, can attribute to the fear of failure or feeling inadequate. It's hard to kind of give ourselves that credit and to believe in ourselves, so we're looking to external people or external situations to give us that credit. And when it's not there, it can cause us to doubt ourselves. And on this path towards success, there's going to be times you're not getting the feedback you want. And the feedback is great when it's there, but it's not always going to be there, so we have to be able to work around that. There are also social and environmental factors that can get in the way. Competitive environments like workplaces or academic settings that emphasize competition and scrutiny can intensify feelings of inadequacy. It can again shoot us into that survival mode of trying to get through these things and worried about judgment or being seen as weak or not being good enough. And that just keeps breaking down that self-esteem and that ability to believe in ourselves to do good stuff. Feeling different. Being in a minority group, whether due to gender, race, ethnicity, or other factors, can lead to heightened pressure and the feeling of being an outsider. That goes back to that tribalism aspect of us that we all have. It's in every one of us. And these things can be things that only we perceive. It can be things that everyone can perceive. It can be anything in between. It's just that feeling of being outside the group or feeling less than that kind of comes with it sometimes, and it can make it harder. Social media is a great place for this stuff to get worse too. Constant exposure to curated online images of success can create unrealistic comparisons and fuel self-doubt. People will brag about things on social media all the time, and sometimes they're literally lying. I've read into this a few times myself where I saw people blatantly lying about things that they did in their own athletic careers or even in their own business careers. And I knew they were liars because I literally saw how it went. Like I was there. And making those comparisons, if I didn't know those things, I didn't see those things, I could really beat myself up and feel like, why didn't I reach those goals? Why didn't I do those things? When in reality, they didn't either. They just want everyone to think they did. So you're going to see that. You're going to see people put stuff out there and try and show themselves off. I mean, social media, people even fake vacations and they're sitting in their room doing nothing. They just want to put this idea out there that they're doing awesome stuff, and that can get in the way of us beating up ourselves and feeling like we're not good enough, kind of feeling that self-doubt. Cultural norms also get in the way too. Societal messages that overemphasize talent and innate ability rather than effort can contribute to the belief that success is a result of luck or external factors. And this is big because it's not just about talent. I have seen so many people fail that had more talent than they knew what to do with. It's not about the talent. It's about the effort. It's about the mindset. It's about how you're putting the work. If you're not doing what you need to do, it does not matter how talented you are. It's only going to take you so far. And you probably have seen people in your life go through that. So don't fall victim to that yourself. Build up your talent. Let's use that, but let's not stick to just that. Let's build up other things around it to really help cultivate that and grow it into something amazing. In essence, imposter syndrome is often a learned pattern of thinking and behaving that can be triggered by various internal and external factors. It's a complex phenomenon that can be overcome through self-compassion, identifying the root causes, and challenging thought patterns. The reason I bring this up is because I want you guys to understand that there's a lot of different things that go into this creation of this, and it's very common. And on top of it, just because it's there doesn't mean it's always going to be there. It doesn't mean you're stuck with it. This is not something you're going to have to live with your whole life and just manage. We can take care of it. We can set ourselves up for success. We can set ourselves up to not have this be in our everyday life. We just got to work at it, and we got to do what we got to do to deal with it. Diving deeper into it, who gets it? Imposter syndrome, the feeling of being a fraud despite evidence of success, can affect anyone, regardless of their background or achievements. While it was initially observed in high achieving women, it is now recognized as a common experience across all genders, professions, and age groups. It's particularly prevalent among high achievers and individuals from minority groups, including those who are Black, Asian American, and Latino. Kind of going back to that idea of feeling like an outsider from the minority groups, but also going back to the idea that this is a common thing around high achievers and just everyone in general. No one is really safe from this. If you get yourself in the right situation, you can have this pop in and start causing problems in your life. So don't feel bad if it's there. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't get into your head asking yourself why it's there. Let's just get to work to taking care of it. High achievers, individuals who consistently achieve success, particularly in competitive fields like academics or businesses, are prone to experiencing imposter syndrome. They may doubt their abilities despite objective evidence of their competence. And part of that is because of what got them to these high achieving places. It could be this burning desire to be better and feeling like everything you're doing is not good enough and you're constantly trying to get better. It could be the desire to put yourself in this place and be on the edge of things and really sharpen that edge best you can. And that can feel really good, but at the same time, it can feel very unstable, feel like things can fall out underneath you at any time. High achievers deal with these things a lot because they're pushing themselves to limits every single day. So this is why it comes up so much with this group. Like I said, with individuals from minority groups, it can happen a lot in these groups as well. Whether it be racial or ethnic minorities, whether it be disabilities people are managing, this can stem from a feeling of feeling different, feeling like an outsider, and even dealing with systematic biases that might cause issues or problems for you as you're trying to compete in different ways or trying to make things happen. So that feeling of an outsider, feeling as though you're not a part of the group, or maybe you haven't seen people do it before you, so it's hard to believe in it, all this kind of stuff can help contribute to these issues becoming more prevalent too. While initially associated with high achieving women, they still find that it does hit women more prevalently than men, but they have found that it does hit both sides. It is pretty common everywhere, but they have just seen a higher percentage of this in women. So we got to be careful of that. All the women out there, let's make sure to pay attention to this and still push ourselves towards the success, because we don't want to take ourselves back and hold ourselves back from the things that we could accomplish by thinking we're not worth it or we're not supposed to put ourselves in these positions. Sometimes we got to believe in ourselves and push ourselves forward. Like we talked about with perfectionism tendencies, individuals who strive for perfection and set extremely high standards for themselves are also more susceptible to that imposter syndrome. This may feel like they're constantly falling short of their own expectations and fear of being exposed as inadequate quite often with whatever they're pursuing in their life. So be aware of that and be aware of that perfectionism. While it's built in a good idea, it doesn't always lead us to what we want it to lead us to. And we can have goals that we strive for and reach for without focusing on perfection and allowing ourselves to make mistakes and have issues at times. Students also deal with this a lot too. Imposter syndrome can significantly impact students, leading them to doubt their abilities and potentially hindering their academic performance and participation. It can also make them less likely to seek help or to apply for opportunities. I mean, think of how many times you've maybe thought yourself out of an answer on a test or second guessed yourself, or maybe even not even put yourself up for something. Maybe it's a college you wanted to go to, maybe it's a program you wanted to get into, and you just felt like it wasn't for you. You weren't meant to get into it, so you just never even gave it a shot. You never tried, right? Sometimes imposter syndrome wins before we even start working. Sometimes what it does is it convinces us to not even start. It says just don't do it. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the time. That's not bad, but we got to understand this for what it is. And this is why it can hit students more, because they're in this vulnerable spot of knowing they need to learn, and they're in the journey of learning at that time. And everything they're doing is being graded, and kind of they're getting like this physical reflection of what's going on and how they're doing. And that can break us down sometimes, especially if perfectionism's in there too. People in new situations also struggle a lot with this. Starting a new job, entering a new field, or taking on a new role can trigger feelings of imposter syndrome, as individuals may feel like they are faking it until they learn the ropes. Sometimes we just got to put ourselves in the fire and let ourselves adjust. We are really good at adapting, we're really good at adjusting, but we need time to do it. So when we do get into new things, novelty is good. It feels good sometimes, but it can also feel very threatening, very scary. So just because you're going into a new situation, don't worry about it. Give yourself the time to adjust. And sometimes we do have to fake it until we make it, until we get to the other side of it all. So don't be afraid of doing that, but also don't be afraid of getting the help you need. And in general, I mean, really anyone can get this. Ultimately, imposter syndrome can affect anyone, regardless of their background, their profession, or their level of achievement. It is just a common human experience, and recognizing it is the first step to overcoming the feelings of self-doubt and inadequacy. So make sure to recognize what's happening, the issues you're having, the issues you're struggling with, and let's get to the other side of it and get yourself set up to, better work through what you're doing and find the success you want in your life. How common is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a common phenomenon with studies reporting a wide range of prevalence rates. The rates that they have found in these studies is between 70 and 82% of the population. So it's a very high rate. Studies estimate that up to 82% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives, right? So that's like over 8 out of 10 people are going to go through this at some point. And it's not even saying that the other 2 out of 10 don't feel it at some point, but maybe they haven't reported it, maybe they don't talk about it, because it's also common with these things to isolate and not talk about these things. That's the issue with some of these studies, is sometimes we don't have the true numbers of things because of how people are reporting and how we're going through it. But still, with what we got, the evidence we have, the cold hard data shows us that a lot of people are going to go through this and struggle with this, especially if you're working towards big goals in your life. Like we said, it's very common with high achieving individuals. That one's going to be kind of throughout this. And this is why we're doing this stuff. This is why we talked about some of these things before this, because we are getting deeper and deeper into the premier performance aspect of reaching the highest levels of performance with whatever we're doing. And sometimes we have to understand the obstacles that are going to get in the way of us reaching that. And this is one of the big ones. And certain professions, such as healthcare, academia, and business, are also super prone to this as well. So being aware of the profession you're in and how it's emphasizing things, how it's working on things, how it views success, how it views failures, all of these things are going to hit us, and they're going to impact how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about the work we're doing too. So let's be aware of the professions we're in and what we're doing. It is important to note that these are just estimates and that the actual prevalence may vary depending on factors such as the definition used, the study population, and the methodology that they're using to collect the data. So what does it feel like? Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and abilities despite evidence of their competence, and fear being exposed as a fraud. It's characterized by a persistent self-doubt, attributing success to external factors, and feeling like a fake or an imposter. So there's a couple different things that we could talk about to kind of emphasize how it feels like. There's often a lot of self-doubt. Individuals with imposter syndrome constantly question their abilities and achievements. They question whether they're actually good at these things, whether they know what they're talking about, even if there's evidence showing that they do over and over again. It's just this constant doubting of the self of how can I do this, or maybe I'm wrong. The fear of being exposed is big. The worry that others will realize they don't deserve their success and view them as a fraud. This is a very common one. It's one that I felt myself many of times, of worrying that maybe people aren't going to view my stuff as helpful, or that I don't know what I'm talking about, these kind of things. And sometimes we got to remind ourselves that we've built what we've built and that we're standing on that, and that this isn't just an accident. We didn't just show up in this spot, and people aren't getting things from what we're talking about just because of luck or just because we said some right combination of words, but because sometimes we do know what we're talking about and we can trust in our expertise. It's just hard to do at times. It's a very vulnerable thing. This is the issue with attributing success to external factors. If we're not taking credits for our accomplishments and we attribute them to luck or timing or help from others, we kind of cut ourselves down because we're not giving ourselves a chance to believe in ourselves and really fuel ourselves that I am doing this and I know what I'm doing. And that's going to help us keep going. That's going to help us keep growing. Perfectionism can get in the way in really big ways. If we're setting unrealistically high standards for ourselves, we may feel devastated by any perceived failure anytime it happens, and it might happen every day because of the standards that we're setting for ourselves. So we got to be aware of how we're looking at these things and what we're expecting ourselves to accomplish, and whether it is something that I could do, or maybe it's something that I need to kind of break down a little bit and make it a little more viable to what I'm doing, and then I can reach those higher standards later in my life if those are still things I want to reach. Sometimes we got to be aware of the goals and standards we're holding to ourselves. Undermining our achievements is pretty common too. We might downplay our achievements or dismiss praise from others, not taking a a good job or a celebration from somebody, just really writing it off and accepting it as just like a bare minimum type thing. And downplaying these things really downplays ourselves and our abilities. So don't do that. I know sometimes we want to do that in terms of like humbleness or humility, and we're going to get into that a little bit later, but that's not really what it is. All you're doing is kind of taking away the effort that you're putting into things. So give yourself a chance to take credit for these things. And it's not saying we have to brag to everybody or anything like that, but we really want to give ourselves a chance to build ourselves up and accept the accomplishments that we're achieving, because you're putting in the work and you deserve the credit for it. And we got to see that work matters. Feeling inadequate comes a lot with this stuff too. This may feel like they're not as intelligent, not as skilled, or as capable as others perceive them to be. And this can get in our way, and it can cause a lot of self-doubt as we just start to question ourselves and what we actually know and what we can actually handle. So we got to give ourselves credit. We got to recognize things and reflect in ways that help us believe in ourselves and not just break us down. There's also a lot of anxiety and stress. The constant fear of being exposed as a fraud can lead to anxiety, stress, and even depression, where we just kind of shut down and start numbing out and start just sitting in that sadness a little too much. In essence, imposter syndrome is the feeling that your success are due to lack or chance rather than your own hard work and abilities. And that fear that others will eventually realize this and expose you as a fraud. And it's not a mental illness, but a psychological pattern that can be overcome. So let's talk a little bit about what to do when it shows up. When experiencing imposter syndrome, the key is to acknowledge the feelings, challenge negative thoughts, and build self-compassion. This can be done by talking about your feelings with someone you trust, developing a growth mindset, and keeping a record of your accomplishments. It's also helpful to reframe failure as a learning opportunity and to celebrate your successes, however small. So we first want to acknowledge and identify. Recognize the specific feelings and situations that trigger imposter syndrome. We always have to recognize first. Recognition will always be the first step with whatever we're doing. We understand that these feelings are common and don't necessarily reflect reality. That's why I talked about how common it is, because it is common. We can't beat ourselves up and feel like it's just us. And it doesn't mean that this is the truth. And then we got to challenge the negative self-talk by questioning its validity and seeking evidence to the contrary. We have a skill in DBT that we like to use for some of this stuff called check the facts. Let's look at the actual factual evidence, not the emotions, not the feelings, not how we think it is, not the assumptions, but the actual facts of what's happening, and see if that supports the validity of what we're saying to ourselves or if it actually kind of goes against it. Sometimes we got to look at those facts and realize that we're not actually being truthful to ourselves. After that, we want to seek support. Talk to a trusted friend, a mentor, or a therapist about your feelings. These are the power of therapists or coaches or mentors, or even just trusted people in our life, because if we sit in it by ourselves, it's going to feel worse. Sometimes we just have to bounce it off someone else, and they can help us with accurately reflecting on it and showing us, maybe even holding up that mirror to ourselves and showing ourselves what we've done and how important we are and what we're kind of doing for, whatever field we're in or the community or anything else. Sharing your experience can help you realize you're not alone, and it can provide valuable perspective. So don't be afraid to share these things. Don't just hold it to yourself. I know it's hard to talk about this stuff, but I also promise you, if you do, it's going to make things easier. You just got to do it with someone trusted. If you do it with someone that you don't trust, they could break you down and they could cause more problems for you. So let's just be careful and a little mindful of who we're talking it to. Let's not just keep this for anybody. Let's save it for the right people in our life. After that, we want to develop a growth mindset. Believe that your abilities can be developed through effort and learning, because we can get better at anything if we put effort into it. If anyone's read the Outliers book by Malcolm Gladwell, they talk a lot about the 10,000 hours and just putting in time and effort, and how many people became successful because of that. So let's take advantage of this and believe in the fact that it's not just about what we're born with and the talent that we have innately. It's about the effort we put into things. Sometimes in life, passion trumps logic. I love this quote because it goes back to the idea of logically this person should win because of talent or situation or environment or whatever it is or resources, but what actually wins is passion every time. And this is something I look for in the leaders I work with, the business professionals, the athletes, all of these kind of things, because if you don't have the passion, you're not going to reach these high echelons of success. You're just not going to. And you could have a lot of things in your corner. You could have a lot of things that logically make sense that you should be doing good things and you should reach the top levels. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen. If you don't have the passion, you're going to get outworked and you're going to fall behind. So we have to have the passion for the things we're doing. And if you don't have that passion, that's okay. There's a couple things we could do. We could build up the passion, refine it or respark it, or even cultivate it. Or we could find out that maybe there is something else that I need to put this effort or energy towards. And maybe I've lost this passion for this thing, or maybe I never was passionate for this thing. So be aware of that passion and how that's going to play a role too, because that's going to be important with that growth mindset and believing that we can achieve awesome things. When we do go through failures, because they're going to happen, I promise you, especially if you're reaching for high levels of success, you're going to fail your way to success. We got to look at those failures as opportunities for growth and learning rather than setbacks. If you let it look like a setback, it's going to break you down, it's going to freak you out, and you're going to avoid it. And you can't avoid failures. You're never going to reach success without going through failures. So you got to put yourself out there and you got to be vulnerable. It's a big topic in this, is vulnerability. And then celebrate the successes, no matter how small. Use them as evidence of your capabilities. Give yourself credit for what you're doing. Take a little bit of time to have some fun and celebrate it. Because if we're doing all this work and we're really working hard to grind and reach these goals, what are we doing it for if we never celebrate anything we're reaching? We never celebrate any milestone we accomplish. So have fun with it. Celebrate these things as you go, and that's going to help you keep going. That's going to fill you up. And we also want to practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. We're always much harsher to ourselves than we are to friends or family members or loved ones. So make sure to treat yourself like you would treat a friend. We can't be our harshest critic. We have to support ourselves. We have to build ourselves up. We think we're being nice to ourselves by beating ourselves up and being harsh because we think we're pushing ourselves towards good things. But really, we're just breaking ourselves down and destroying our own belief in ourselves. So build yourself up and be kind to yourself. Challenge the negative self-talk and replace it with positive affirmations. Positive affirmations could be things like I am the greatest or no one's as good as me. And they're not, even while they could sound like kind of hyping yourself up in a really cocky way, what they're doing is they're setting up a belief system that I can achieve this thing. We got to believe it to achieve it. If you don't think it can be done, you're not going to do it. You have to believe it before you do it. So you got to have some thought in your mind that's going to hold you there and kind of keep building yourself up. And remember that everyone's going to make mistakes and it's okay to learn from them. We want to do that. We have to go through mistakes, we have to go through failures, and we got to help ourselves grow from them as we keep going. We also want to keep our focus on our strengths. Keep a list of your accomplishments and revisit it when you're feeling doubtful. Sometimes we got to build ourselves back up and recognize when we can kind of take some credit for things to use it as fuel to keep going and keep building momentum, because we're going to have times that we don't want to. We're going to have times that our brain's telling us we're not good enough and we should just stop now and quit. But we got to push through that and we got to get the work done. Reflect on feedback you've received and use it to build your confidence. Feel good about things, whether that be positive or negative feedback. Positive feedback is going to just feel good. That's easy. The negative feedback is going to help us get better. That's what we need. That's the gemstone. The positive feedback just feels good. So enjoy it, bring it in, let yourself really absorb it, but let's reflect on the feedback, give yourself credit, and also let's keep working. Let's have that balance between acceptance and change, that you're doing good things and we can still do more. Challenge the tendency to compare yourself to others, especially on social media. Challenge yourself with yourself. Compete with yourself. Don't get stuck looking at everyone else and what they're doing or who's doing what more or better or anything else. It's not going to help you. It's going to break you down. Don't compare to others. Compare to yourself and just keep growing, keep working. Be actively working on these strategies. You can begin to overcome imposter syndrome and embrace your true potential if you just put the work in. So don't be afraid of that work, even though it is uncomfortable sometimes, and sometimes you got to face some really hard truths. But this is why we do this stuff. The saying hard now, easy later really plays into effect with this. Do the hard thing now, have the easy stuff later, but do the work. I know it's going to suck at times, and I know it's scary at times, but you will be glad and proud of yourself if you let yourself do the work now and let these things play out for you. So let's go over some more strategies to combat that imposter syndrome when it does show back up. We want to rewire our imposter beliefs when they're there. That's challenging that negative self-talk. So recognize which ones aren't helpful, which ones are the imposter beliefs, and we want to reshape them. We want to reframe them, kind of going back to that brain activity that we talked about. That's why we use this brain activity for today's podcast episode. So make sure to use that as much as you can, because that's going to help rewire those imposter beliefs. And then as you get actual experiential evidence where you're going through experiences and seeing how things play out, it's going to be easier to hang on to different mindsets and different belief systems rather than getting stuck in these old imposter beliefs that are breaking you down and making you feel like you're not good enough. Mindfulness is a big one too. This is why we talk so much about mindfulness in general. There's a lot of different mindfulness activities out there. You can look at past episodes, or you can even just Google mindfulness activities. There's a lot of them. But really what mindfulness is about building the muscle of focus in our brain, our ability to stay in certain thoughts or certain beliefs, or to focus on a certain situation at hand, or to be in the present, or anything else we're doing. So help yourself build up that focus and really build that muscle up, because the better strength you have in that muscle, the easier it's going to be, and the less these things are going to take you off and make you feel bad about yourself. It's going to help you just feel good. We also want to reframe, like we talked about with that brain activity. So reframe the thoughts, challenge yourself to look at these in better light, find the silver lining in it, even if it feels everything's falling apart. There is something there to pull on. There is something to gain from it. Don't be afraid, and don't just submit to it. Don't just give in. Another thing we can do is building a win journal or an evidence file. This can help us track achievements. So you can keep a record of your accomplishments, both big and small, in a journal or a digital file, and just kind of write it down and keep it for yourself. When you're struggling, you can go back to it and take a look at it and show yourself how much you've done, how far you've come, what you've accomplished, because we don't always track these things. We just get done with what we got done, and then we just move on to the next thing instead of actually giving ourselves credit for that. And sometimes we got to look back at these things later and remind ourselves that we can do things and we can get stuff done. We just got to give ourselves that credit. We also want to collect positive feedback. So include compliments in it, positive reviews, any other feedback that highlights your strengths. It's going to help you feel good. It's going to build you up. It's going to build up your confidence in yourself. And it's also going to show you that the impact of what you're doing matters and that people are getting things from it. And you want to review it regularly, because if we're writing all this down, that's great, but it's not going to do anything if you never do anything with it. So when you're feeling down or experiencing that imposter syndrome, revisit your journal and remind yourself of your capabilities and your successes. Don't push it back. Don't try and force yourself to stay in that imposter syndrome, because your mind's going to want to sometimes. You got to push yourself out of it. You got to pull yourself out of it and make sure you're not stuck in it. And it can be hard to do, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. We also want to challenge negative self-talk. So let's talk about that a little bit so you know a little bit more of how to do that. Recognize the negative thoughts. That's the first step. Recognition will always be the first step. And then pay attention to the negative thoughts and the self-doubt that characterize the imposter syndrome. What ones are showing up for you? What ones are you having all the time? What ones barely show up? What things don't mess with you? We want to reframe those negative thoughts. Challenge those thoughts by finding evidence to the contrary or reframing them in a more positive light. So we could reframe it, reshape it, like look at it differently and say it differently to ourselves, or we could just straight up deny it through evidence of, look, I did this thing, so obviously I can do these things. An example of this is, instead of thinking I made a mistake, I'm not good enough, you could reframe it as, I made a mistake, but I learned from it and I can improve in the future. Yes, we made a mistake, that's true in both, but the way we look at it and the way we take from it from there helps either build us up or break us down. Seek support, speak to others. Share your experiences with trusted friends and family or colleagues. Talking about imposter syndrome can help you feel less alone and normalize the experience. The most powerful words we can hear in struggle is "me too." And thinking back about how common this is, with over 80% of people feeling this is super common. So if you can find someone to talk to about this, there's a chance that that person's going to say, like, I've been there, I've felt that before. Maybe they even have some advice. Maybe they have an idea of how they've handled it and it would help them out. Maybe they have just a way of sitting with you and making it feel okay that I can sit in this right now. And it doesn't mean that I'm just this terrible person or I'm never going to figure things out. It's just a tough mindset to get into sometimes. So don't keep that imposter syndrome to yourself. Don't let yourself isolate and shut down, because that's going to be a feeling that we normally have, and that's not bad, but we got to get into things with other people. We are social animals. We work best when we get support from others, so make sure to get that if you need that. With that in mind, you could get a mentor or a coach too, maybe even a therapist. You could seek guidance from someone who can offer support and help you develop strategies for overcoming imposter syndrome, because there is ways to do it. We just got to take advantage of them. And that could be considering professional help if needed. If imposter syndrome is significantly impacting your life, consider seeking professional help from a therapist or counselor, or even a doctor if you need to help work through these things and make it a little bit easier. Don't just get stuck and feel like you have to grind your way through it. If it's not working, let's accept that. Let's reflect on that. Let's do something new. Let's work on it. And there are people out there that have a pretty nice playbook of how to get through this stuff if you just want to work with them. You don't have to do it all by yourself all the time. This is partly why we're putting all this information out there. We want to give you guys some tools to try out, but we also want to push you guys in the directions to get what you need and not get stuck on certain things. Outside of that, we want to focus on strength and growth. Identify the strengths and take time to identify your skills, talents, and areas of expertise. We got to give ourselves credit. That's going to help build us up and even help us embrace a growth mindset. That growth mindset can help us view challenges as opportunities for growth and learning rather than as threats. Going back to past episodes, we looked at that idea of challenge versus threats and how it impacts our body and how it impacts how we handle things. So look at these things as challenges and opportunities. Don't look at them as threats. That's just going to break you down, both mentally and physically. Let's help ourselves grow and embrace that growth mindset by looking at these things as chances to get better, because that's what they all are, even if they don't feel good. Set realistic goals. This is a big one because sometimes people look at this as not pushing themselves, and sometimes people look at this as too small or too short of an effort. Break down the larger tasks into smaller, more manageable tasks and celebrate your progress along the way. And this isn't saying let's not push ourselves. It's just saying let's set up goals that are small enough in the in-between to get to the bigger goals along the way. If we have too ambitious goals where they're too big, too far out, it's going to be really hard to reach them. And if you don't reach them, it's going to be really hard to build up your self-esteem, and you might have a lot more imposter syndrome. So find ways that you can grow, but make sure it's realistic growth. And then from there, keep growing. Don't limit yourself. Don't substitute realistic with limitations. We just want to be able to hit these goals. Something you can think about is if you're setting a goal, honestly reflect on it and ask yourself if you have a 50, maybe even 60% chance of achieving this goal. Because if you do, that might be a good goal to go after. You have a chance of failing, but you also have a chance of succeeding, and maybe you have a higher chance of succeeding than failing. So let's help push ourselves, but let's not push ourselves too far saying, I'm going to choose a goal that I have a 5% chance of achieving. That's going to break you down. It's going to be really frustrating, and you're going to probably give up before you get fully into it and build up what you need to build up to find that success. And then practice that self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same compassion and understanding that you would offer a friend. Again, we can't be our own harshest critic, even though we love to be. We have to treat ourselves nicely. We have to find kindness for ourselves and give ourselves credit and help ourselves see that we're trying the best we can. And that's great, but it's not perfect yet. And we don't want perfection. We just want to keep working. Accept imperfections. Recognize that no one is perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes. That's a part of the process. We need to make mistakes. We need to fail. But we got to have that balance of acceptance and change, that I'm trying as hard as I can, and at the same time, I need to do more. I need to work harder. We need to have both so we can give ourselves the credit to build ourselves up, but we can still push ourselves forward and keep that momentum going. And this is why this is such a core concept of DBT and why we use DBT to help build up this performance mindset for people. Celebrate the successes. Acknowledge and appreciate your accomplishments, no matter how small they may seem. Don't minimize them. Don't ignore them or just gloss over them. Give yourself some credit. Have some fun with them. Even if it's just a couple hours, even if it's just one night. Give yourself that credit. Give yourself that chance, because that's going to motivate you to keep working. By actively using these tools and strategies, you can effectively combat imposter syndrome and build greater confidence in your abilities. We just got to do the work. As we grow, as we go with the work we're doing, the success we're finding in athletics or our career or relationships, whatever it is, we tend to find this problem that pops up for us, which is we feel it more, imposter syndrome, as we rise. You would think the higher you rise, the less you'd feel it, the more comfortable you feel. And sometimes that does happen. But people, especially those who are high achievers, often experience more intense feelings of imposter syndromes as they progress and achieve more in their careers. This may seem counterintuitive since success is generally associated with increased confidence, but there are several psychological and social factors that explain this phenomenon. The first one being increased visibility and pressure. As individuals advance to senior positions or roles with greater responsibility, they face heightened scrutiny and expectations from both themselves and from others. The pressure to constantly perform at a high level and meet these expectations can intensify the fear of being found out as a fraud. So, just feeling like there's more eyes on us can create a lot of problems. And this happens a lot with athletics because you literally have cameras on you. You get people asking you questions, you get people talking about you in the news. You're literally having your game reviewed and reflected on and kind of picked apart kind of from places where it's very easy to see mistakes because there's going to be mistakes. And we could let that break us down, but we have to look at this and understand that this comes with this, and there are ways to handle this weight without it breaking us down. Another part of this is a fear of failure or not meeting expectations. High achievers often set incredibly high, sometimes unattainable standards for themselves, and this can create a lot of problems. With each new accomplishment, the fear of not living up to those self imposed standards can grow, leading to increased anxiety and self doubt. And if we keep letting that grow like a wildfire at a certain place, it's going to get out of control and it's going to start just destroying things. So we have to be aware of that. It's not bad to set up new goals and to keep reaching for things, but we can't let this be fueled by fear. We have to fuel it with passion. Comparison with others is a trap that we all can fall in. And as people climb the career ladder, they find themselves surrounded by other successful individuals. This can fuel social comparison and trigger feelings of inadequacy. They may focus on others' perceived strengths and achievements, downplaying their own accomplishments and feeling like they don't measure up. This one was a huge one for me when I was playing football in college. Because in high school, like I would get some accolades, I had some awards, accomplishments, these things felt great. And it wasn't something I was feeling myself on. But when I got to the next level and I saw the talent of everybody and I saw all of the awards and achievements people had, it just created this feeling like I wasn't good enough, that I didn't have the same things everyone else had. And that, I got here by luck or it was just a weird circumstance that led me here and that I didn't actually belong on the team, that I just kind of fell into it. And that did cause issues for me. And this is, again, partly why I'm doing what I'm doing is I don't want people to fall into the issues I fell into. So we have to be aware of that comparison, especially as we grow higher, because more people are going to be more successful, but we can't let that break us down. We got to remind ourselves we earned that seat at the table and there's a reason we're there too. We just got to put our own talent out there and remind ourselves that a bunch of those people out there we're looking at probably have the same self-doubt we're feeling too. Perfectionism is a huge one. It's going to keep coming up. Perfectionists in particular may struggle with imposter syndrome as they set incredibly high standards and perceive anything less than perfect as a failure. This mindset can make it difficult to acknowledge and internalize the accomplishments, even with positive feedback. We're kind of just brushing off everything positive and we're just focusing on all the negative, and that breaks us down. I mean, there's another name kind of for this that's called rumination. And they've shown with rumination, the more you think about things that aren't going well or aren't working how you want them to, it breaks us down, it causes more problems, it can create mental health issues like anxiety and depression. So let's be aware of it and let's not get too stuck in that because that's going to pull you away from that peak performance. Attributing success to external factors and not taking advantage of the fact that you're creating these things is going to cause issues as well. If we discount our hard work and our abilities and attribute it just to things like luck, timing, or external circumstances, it's going to break us down again because we're not going to believe in ourselves. The inability to internalize achievements further reinforces the belief that they're not truly capable or deserving of their success. And that idea of I don't deserve this actually can be super common too, and that can be a thing that pushes people into corners to feel like they shouldn't stand out there and actually take that spotlight that they deserve and take the credit for what they've been building. Another thing is a lack of objective self-assessment. It can be challenging for those with imposter syndrome to objectively evaluate their own competence and skills. They may struggle to recognize their strengths and unique contributions, focusing instead on their perceived flaws or areas where they could have done better. Ultimately, the combination of these factors can create a cycle where increasing success paradoxically intensifies feelings of self-doubt and fraudulence for individuals experiencing imposter syndrome. This is also why it's helpful to have other people in our life help us reflect, whether it be a friend, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, anything like this, because it's going to help us actually concretely reflect on what's happening and what's happening in our performance, being very objective on it and not filtering it through the lens or perspective or emotions or feelings or assumptions. Because if we're starting to judge it, you're going to start to take away all your credit and you're going to make it feel like everything you're doing is wrong, and you're going to just look at the stuff that's not working out and not give yourself actual credit that you do deserve. Sometimes we do need to fake it till we make it, but we got to be careful of not pushing it too far that you actually burn out. Balance and a need to be able to reflect or check in with yourself and know where you are as it changes. This stuff will change. We just have to find the balance. We can't push too far, but we can't not push either. So sometimes we got to push ourselves to get uncomfortable. But we have to know for ourselves, where is my limit that I'm pushing past uncomfortable and growing, and now I'm pushing into actually destruction and chaos. If we push too far, things break. Balance is key in all of life. So let's push ourselves at times, and let's allow ourselves to reflect and check in to know when we need to do what as these things change as we go through our life, because things do change. Psychology behind imposter syndrome is kind of based on a lot of different things. Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent, often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Despite evidence of their competence, it's characterized by self-doubt, anxiety, and a tendency to attribute success to external factors like luck or chance rather than their own abilities. While not a clinical diagnosis, it's a common experience, particularly among high-achieving individuals, and it usually has a lot to do with a fear of vulnerability, being seen by others, being judged by others, being rejected by others, being in that spotlight and failing. What is people going to think if this doesn't go well? Tying our identity to our success, all these kind of things. When we are reaching for success, it's a very vulnerable place because it could go wrong, you could fail. There's a pretty good chance you're going to have something go wrong and you're going to face some failures as you're on that path. So we have to be willing to go through that. We have to build ourselves up. That's a big part with self-care, of giving us armor so we can handle these things, because we're going to have to put ourselves in very emotionally risky places because they're very vulnerable and they could go wrong. But at the same time, if you take these risks, there's also a lot of chances things go right. If you wait in life for things to come to you, you typically get a lot of stuff you don't want. If you go after the things you want in life, it can be hard, it can be difficult, but you typically get a lot more of what you do want. So go after things, pursue things. Don't get stuck where you're at, and don't just decide that this is the best it's going to get. If you want things better and you want things in your life, go after them. It's going to help you, and you're going to reach them if you're willing to put the time and effort into it. And you might need a little bit of help or guidance on the way, but go after these things. You would be surprised at what you can accomplish and what you can get in your life if you go after things. So let's talk a little bit about how it can show up into performance, because I think that's a big part of this, and that's a lot of what we're focused on here is performance. So it can show up in performance through over-preparing. Sometimes we get caught up over-preparing for things when we don't need to prepare in the way that we are, and we're actually burning ourselves out through preparation before we even show up for whatever we're going to go do. The opposite of that is procrastinating. Sometimes we push these things off and tell ourselves we'll do it later, and it could be, well-minded that you're going to just take your time and do what you got to do, but it can push us away from what we are trying to accomplish and cause some problems for ourselves too. So let's be aware of that and make sure to have some optimism to combat that procrastination, because that is going to help be the antidote to it. Not taking credit's a big one. If you're having times where you're not taking credit for accomplishments or hard work you're putting into things, you're really trying to give it to other people. Sometimes it's because you want other people to have some credit. Just make sure you take your credit too. Make sure you take what you've worked for. Fear of being found out, fear of being seen as a fraud. So a huge part of it. Another one is avoiding risks. We tend to play it small. We just try and keep things safe, and we try and not put ourselves out there, going back to that vulnerability again. We have to take risks to reach these places. If it was easy, everyone would do it. How many people have talked about wanting success in the things that we do but they don't actually reach it? If we want these things, we have to put ourselves in a place that other people aren't willing to put us. So we got to do the work, we got to take those risks, and we got to do the scary things sometimes. And it's not being reckless, but we got to be mindful of pushing ourselves, because if you live in your comfort zone, that'll be comfortable, but you will never reach these goals you have for your success. To reach success, we have to be uncomfortable. So put yourself out there and let's see where it takes us. Sometimes we also burn ourselves out by trying to prove yourself. Maybe we're trying over the top to prove our worth or that we belong, and we actually do way more work than we need to. So don't work harder than we need to. We want to push ourselves, but we don't want to burn out. Because if you burn out, the work's all done anyways. You're not going to get any of this stuff. So don't put yourself too far out there. Let yourself get what you need, and don't burn out along the way. So how do we build a performance mindset despite imposter syndrome? You want to focus on contributions, not on overly proving yourself. Focus on the impact again. Don't just focus on yourself and your legitibility or credibility or any of these things. Focus on what you're doing and what's working for you. Measure progress, not perfection. Compete with yourself. I want you guys to all focus on being better than you are now. And I want you to keep going and keep growing with that. Don't look at everyone else. Don't look at anyone else in your life. Just keep growing with what you're doing and focus on the progress, not on being perfect. If you look at that perfection, it's going to break you down. Lean into your values instead of validation. Don't always look for people to validate the work you're doing and give yourself that positive feedback that we may want. It feels good. It's awesome. We all like it. Sometimes we got to lean into the values. Sometimes we got to remind ourselves why we're doing these things. If you're putting work in because you want to help people and this is just what works for you, and you are helping people, lean into that. You don't need to get credit from someone else of, oh, you're helping all these people, if you know what you're doing and you're focusing on those values. That's why that aspect of that sense of self is so important. And again, this is why we covered these things on the early episodes, to build a foundation that we can get into these things now. So that one's in our relationship episode. If you do want to go back to that and explore values a little bit for yourself, that could be helpful. You also want to surround yourself with truth tellers, not just yes men. We need people to call us out and tell us when we're not doing what we need to do, or even help us reflect when things aren't going well. If we get people around us that just tell us everything's great and you're amazing and you're awesome, that's not going to help you. We need honest reflection sometimes, and sometimes we need objective truth of what's going on. So don't be afraid to have people around you that are willing to tell you it how it is. But the other side of that is you can't expect them just to do it all the time. Sometimes you got to ask for it and ask for that honest reflection. So don't be afraid to reach out to people and get people in your life to let you know the truth of things, even if it stings, even if it hurts, because you can grow from it. We just got to put ourselves out there. There is also a thing called success anxiety. Winning doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's more pressure. And this is a big one. This happens a lot with undefeated teams. As every win you stack up, while that's the goal, you just have this feeling that everything can fall apart at any point, and when's that other shoe gonna drop? Sometimes more success feels like more pressure. So let's be aware that that is a thing, and that's not necessarily bad. That kind of comes back to that idea of as we rise, we can feel more of this. But we have to be aware of managing these things and focusing on one thing at a time. If we look at it as like a streak or something like that, it can feel like things can fall apart at any time. If anyone's ever had any issues with sobriety, that could be a piece where you're trying to get like your 1 month chip or your 1 week chip or whatever it is, and you have like this streak you're trying to build on, and the higher you go with it, sometimes there's more fear that comes with it of like any second this could go sideways and I could lose all this work. You can't look at it as a threat. Look at it as a challenge and take each day one day at a time and just keep building on what you can build on, control what you can control. Outside of that, you got to just let some of these things go. So let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome and humility. Like we talked about earlier, these both do play a role, and I do want to explore those because I think it could be helpful. Imposter syndrome and humility, while often confused, are distinct concepts. Imposter syndrome is characterized by persistent self-doubt and a fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite the evidence of competence. Humility, on the other hand, involves a realistic assessment of one's abilities, acknowledging both strengths and weaknesses, and being open to learning and growing. Essentially, imposter syndrome is an inaccurate negative self-perception, while humility is an accurate balanced view of oneself. So one is much more negative than the other, and the other one is much more accurate than the other. This is why we might need help from other people to find the accurate reflection or assessment. So we got to be honest with ourselves, but sometimes we need help from someone else because our own perspective might get in the way. Humility is a virtue characterized by a modest or low view of one's own importance. It's characterized by recognizing one's limitations, being open to feedback and learning, acknowledging the contribution of others, and this is all helpful. It benefits strong relationships by fostering them. It helps encourage growth and promotes a more balanced perspective. But we want to be aware that this is actually humility and that we're not disguising the imposter syndrome as humility. Humility involves a realistic self-assessment, while imposter syndrome involves that inaccurate negative self-assessment. So ask yourself, are you being overly negative, or is this actually accurate? And if you're not sure, run it by someone else. Imposter syndrome can also be connected to trauma. So imposter syndrome, a feeling of inadequacy, is often linked to unresolved trauma. Trauma, particularly interpersonal trauma involving a lack of safety or support, can significantly impact self-worth and fuel the belief that one is not good enough. This can manifest as fear of failure, perfectionism, and difficulty accepting praise, all hallmarks of imposter syndrome. So be aware of the trauma. If you do feel like there is trauma in your past you haven't dealt with, deal with it. We talked about that in our trauma episode. So if you're not sure about these things or want to explore it more, go back to that one and listen to that. But again, go get what you need. Don't just try and push through these things. Sometimes something is a problem. We actually got to take care of it. And it's not just a push through moment. Some things we do need to push through, but not everything. Identity significantly shapes the experience of imposter syndrome. When individuals struggle to reconcile their self-perception with external perceptions of their abilities, imposter feelings can arise. This disconnect between one's self-identity and the identity they believe others perceive can fuel self-doubt and the fear of being exposed as a fraud, even when evidence contradicts that belief. Sometimes this even happens as we're growing. You can feel as a fraud while you're growing, and that can be really tough. It's common to experience feelings of self-doubt and inadequacy even when you're achieving success and growing personally or professionally. This feeling is known as imposter syndrome. It is a psychological pattern where individuals, especially high achievers, struggle to internalize their accomplishments and fear being exposed as frauds, despite objective evidence of their abilities. This happens because you're pushing new boundaries. When you step outside your comfort zone and try something new, it's natural to feel some discomfort and doubt your competence. Another big part of this is the Dunning-Kruger effect. As you learn more about a subject, you become aware of how much you don't know, which can trigger feelings of inadequacy. This actually indicates a growing understanding of your field, and it's actually a good thing. That one's really important, so I want you guys to pay attention to that. A fear of failure. The fear of making mistakes and being exposed as incompetent can be paralyzing and prevent individuals from fully engaging with opportunities and from taking risks that they need to take. High standards can backfire. It's another big part of these things. If we put in incredibly high or unrealistic standards, they can absolutely backfire and contribute to imposter syndrome. This phenomenon is commonly observed in high-achieving individuals who, despite their accomplishments, struggle with creating reliable or realistic standards or goals that we could hit because we keep trying to reach too far, too outside of our grasp, and we just create this situation where things can collapse and we beat ourselves up about it in the in-between, and it just causes more and more problems. Normalizing imposter syndrome is going to help as well. Sometimes the best thing we can hear when we're in struggle is "me too." It helps us challenge negative self-talk and belief. It helps us recognize when we're being, when we're acting with humility versus that imposter syndrome. It helps us actually assess what we need to work on and reflect where we're at and what we've done. And it just helps us do things because we're not good at doing things all on our own. We can't feel isolated and all by ourselves. It's just going to build up a bunch of shame, and that shame is very toxic. So make sure to connect with people. Make sure to figure out some people you can get support from, and people you can support in their struggles and when they're going through these things, because this is common. It's going to happen to all of us. Let's not let ourselves hold ourselves back from the success we want to reach. Let's go out there and do what we can do, and let's go after these things. Let's get away from that breakdown of self-worth and feeling not good enough, and let's actually build ourselves up, feeling like you are where you are because you've put in work and you bought that table or that seat at that table through that hard work, and you deserve it. You owned it. So let's embrace these things and let's help ourselves keep growing. Recognition is the first step. If we don't know something's happening, we can't do anything about it. So reflect honestly on yourself and where you're at and how things are going, and let's give ourselves credit if we need to give ourselves credit. If we got to change things up, we got to change things up. If this is helpful in any way, make sure to share the episode. We'd love this to get out to as many people as possible. We just want to help people move past these things. So if you know someone struggling with imposter syndrome, or you think it might be helpful to somebody in your life, even if you've never even talked about it or thought about it with someone else, send it their way. See if they get a benefit from it, even if it's just one of these small clips that we're going to put out on the social media. If there is somebody that could benefit, just give them a shot to try these things out, because you never know. Just a quick mindset shift can fix a lot of things in our life sometimes. And if it was helpful for you, leave us a review. We would like to hear from you guys and how things are going and what's happening. Leave us a review on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Any of these places would be awesome. The more reviews we get, the more this gets out to more people. It really helps us. It helps, kind of branch that awareness out. And we just love hearing back from you guys. So make sure to put those out there. I make it a point to give you guys actionable tools to find success in your life. So let me know if it's working. I want to know. I love hearing stories from you guys, whether it's success stories or failures or anything in between. If you have questions, reach out. I love being connected with you guys and just being a resource to help you move forward and reach the success you're looking for in your life. I love hearing about the greatness that we're achieving and that we're reaching for. So let me know how it's going. And if you do have questions or you do want to let me know about something, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can email me. My email is tmailer@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You could text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. We have the Instagram and the TikTok with the same name where you can jump into that community, and you can also message me on, which is premier_performance_Reno for both of those. And then we have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page with the same name, Premier Performance LLC for both of those as well. Get involved on those communities, and then the Twitter or the X profile, which is at Premier Reno LLC. So follow us, get involved, friend us. Let's jump into these things together. If you do have things you want to share, make sure to reach out and share them with us. We'd love to hear from you guys, whatever it may be. Even if you want to share anonymously, that's totally fine. I honestly do not mind. I just want to help out. But the only way I can help is if you guys let me know. And if there are certain things you want us to cover or talk about more, if you're struggling with something and you want a whole episode covering it or at least part of it, let us know, and I can always add those in later. I love giving you guys what you want. That's my goal of this, is tailoring it to the actual needs of the community. So you guys let me know what you need, and we'll get that to you. Next week, we're going to keep going with this. We have new episodes coming out every Sunday. And next week, we're going to talk about self-talk and visualization and building ourselves using those tools and how to use that to find success in your life with what you're doing. So we'll get deeper into these things, but let's push back that imposter syndrome and let's not hold ourselves back from the success that you have worked hard for and that you deserve. Go be the best you can be. Build up that premier mindset. We want to really build up resilient minds so we can have those premier results. And that's our goal here at Premier Performance, to help perform at the top levels. So let's go do it in every aspect of our life, and let's practice these things in every aspect of our life. Go have some fun. Go give these things a shot. Go enjoy your week. And if you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, and we'll keep working together soon. All right. Have a good one.